Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second session in the one-day digital conference of Industry 4.0 for Foundry sector. And the second session is a panel discussion on role of Industry 4.0 in Foundry sector. So I welcome the panelists of this important panel discussion. I welcome Mr. Manish Patrikar. He is chairman of Western Region IIF, Institute of Indian Foundrymen. Welcome, Mr. Patrikar, for this important session. Then I welcome
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas from uh, Foundry Planet. And Foundry Planet is one of the supporters of this event also. So I thank you, Mr. Thomas, for being a supporter to supporting organization to this event. And welcome to this panel discussion. We will hear from you the views, your views regarding the European Foundry, how it is responding to Industry 4.0 needs. And I welcome Mr. Sham Arjunwadkar from NIFFT, Chairman NIFFT, to again participate in this session. Let me tell you, our original participant to this session was Mr. Deepak Ghate, who is Chief Operating Officer of Mahindra CIE Automotive Limited. But it seems there is some accident in the factory, and that is why Mr. Ghate is very busy in dealing with the crisis in the factory. So he may join us after some time, but till that time, I would like to have more inputs from Mr. Sham Arjunwadkar, he being such an experienced person, not only in foundry or in technical issues, but also in Industry 4.0. So we will take advantage of his experience, and I'm sure he would like to share it with the industry. Thank you, Mr. Arjunwadkar, for being with us. And see, the question is, as was mentioned in the inauguration session, Industry 4.0 per se has been penetrating in all verticals of the industry. It is not only industry, I will say, it is in all aspects of human life, including the industry. So as far as industry is concerned, all industry verticals are now implementing in some way or other various modules of Industry 4.0. Now we know that since February or March, the whole world has been affected by the pandemic of COVID-19, and slowly the industry is coming out of it. And we are very fortunate that our industry, foundry industry, is one of the leading industries which has come up very well and which has a very strong recovery. We have seen a very strong recovery of the industry in past 2 or 3 months. As we know, foundry industry is, I would say, more than 50% dependent on auto industry. And you all know that auto industry is today doing extremely well in most of the sectors. I think in tractors is doing well because of the very good monsoon. Then we have two-wheelers and four-wheelers, which are also doing well, maybe because of the accumulated demand, maybe because of the festival spike, maybe because of the good harvest. So, but all these sectors except the commercial vehicle segment, the all segments of the auto industry are doing well, which has given a good boost to the foundry industry, obviously. And now foundry industry is also performing well. So, with this good sentiment prevailing in the industry, we are discussing about how what is the way forward with respect to Industry 4.0. How Industry 4.0 will benefit the foundries, what are the challenges? We were thinking that digitalization is coming, but maybe may not be for next 5 to 10 years. With this COVID-19, I feel that digitalization has come, very close to us now. We maybe in next 2 3 months, 2 3 years, the whole structure and the whole perception of the industry will change. I don't know whether this view is right or not. I would like to have it, confirmed with from these participants. And first, I will go to Mr. Patrikar. But sir, what do you think? Whether this digitalization sort of a process which is going on in the industry, has it been fastened by the COVID-19 pandemic? What is your take on this?
Am I audible, sir?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
of course you are.
Yeah. So first of all, good morning to all, and thank you, Chandekar sir, and all the panelists and also the delegates for arranging such a beautiful theme, which is really relevant in today's time, and it's a high time. In fact, I would say, thank you for inviting us, me specifically for sharing views over as a panelist here. And I would like to give a brief before I answer your question. I started working in this industry since 2005. So that time, if I wanted to correlate this 4.0 along with our foundry industry, I used to heard words from the eminent speakers, which are like Sham sir is here, Mr. Porwal is here, Mr. Menon is here. I was listening to them in the inauguration session when Mr. Sham Arjunwadkar said the energy is a pulse of the industry, and Mr. Menon was saying a very nice thing, like human knew the things but unable to describe. So has expressed his view about the foundry. So with these three things, if I wanted to correlate the foundry 4.0, when I started, I was listening from these the giants of the industry, stalwarts of the industry, that foundry is an art. Then the foundry is an art, and after 10 to 15 years of time, it became a science, and people started knowing what exactly is happening behind the castings, what is the role of the casting, and dimensions of the casting from has come to microns, and people started using the high pressure lines. And so later on, now the stage has come, people started saying it is no more art or no more science, it is the engineering, because people wanted to know everything. In fact, your OEM also wanted to know everything, what things you are doing to get good casting, what is the metallurgy, and what you will do to sustain this. So this is more of an engineering now. And to answer your question precisely after my very brief view, when you are saying the digitalization process, so sir, there are two things which is happening in the foundry industry. One is a digitization and another is a digitalization.
Right.
So what is happening in the foundry industry now? The digitization is not still happening. Digitalization is still happening. So from records which has been kept on paper, now people and foundry industry of India started keeping it in a computers, different types of softwares, and now the move has started because customers started asking, "Ki, what is the things which you are doing, and what is the record, and what is the evidences?" So I would say rather than doing it a compulsion, it is now a mandatory thing which foundry industries are doing and adopting these changes. So this is my very brief view about your question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Patrikar. I would like to go to Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas, how? Good morning, and it must be
Morning.
very early morning in Germany now.
That's right. It's really very morning, early morning, but I'm very happy and very pleased to be with you. And I can imagine in India, it's quite warm outside. When I came in the early morning into the office, it was -8 degrees and it was snow outside. So, and I'm very lonesome in the office because nobody is here at this time. So I like to have you around me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thanks
Yes,
being with us. Thanks being with us, Thomas.
it's a
And
pleasure.
yeah, and the first question I would like to ask you is, how is the situation in European foundries with respect to Industry 4.0, or maybe smart manufacturing, as you call it in Germany? How is
Yes.
the situation? How are the foundries responding to this process?
To answer your question, I like to go 10 months back. When I came back in March, 1st of March, I came back from Chennai in India. I visited IFEX. And this was my last big journey in this year. And I came home, I was really impressed by IFEX and the motto, it was a paradigm shift. And my impression was, wow, Indians realized what is coming up. Huh? And I like to quote the IFF president for this time, Sanjay Shroff. And he said, change before you have to. Face the paradigm shift now. And I was sitting in the airplane and I was thinking about, oh, Indians are really ahead because in Europe, we are talking about a lot about. But when you go to the foundries, You will find a lot of digitization, but it's not a smart foundry as we are talking about. And so I was thinking, maybe the Indians are going ahead because they have a really big chance when they realize it to start it now, immediately. And then we had all the COVID troubles, and we have it still now. I'm sure we will get a lockdown in Germany for the next days, and this is bad for the industry, it's bad for people, but we have go through this crisis, and we will come back afterwards. This is not the problem. But in this time, a lot of things changed, and it was, for all of us, it was difficult to realize the changes and to find a new attitude to this. But this is a chance, and we all have the chance now. And maybe it's for you as Indians, it's easier for you to start now, kind as a revolution, as this very, very slow and fed up people from Europe, because we think we know everything, and this smart foundry is a difficult subject. It's not so easy when you have a foundry which is running to think about to change everything. This is not so easy. And when you think about the principles of a smart foundry, you have to think about all kind of machines, not only one. You have to think about all the machinery and all the people working there to combine them. And this is not so easy. And answering your question, we see a lot of high tech in Europe. And we see high quality, and we see efficiency. But what we are talking about, Industry 4.0 or IoT or smart foundry, I saw in my life maybe one or two trying to get this level. And if you ask me, did it really work? I can say it seemed to, but not really. So we have to do a lot of work to achieve this, but the pressure will come not out of the foundries, the pressure will come from the customer side. And this is the topic we have to talk about, because this pressure is very, very interesting, because this means sustainability, this means environmental, all this. Greta is also, I think, a name in India. You heard about this young girl from Sweden, and where we were smiling about. I said, okay, forget it. Huh? No. Greta is no longer active on the TV shows, but the impact is there, and the impact will come from the customer side. I'm totally sure. And so we are talking about transformation, transmission of engines and all these things. And we have to react as foundries. We have to react to all these questions. Not in 10 years. We have to react now. We have to think about, and we have to be very, very clear in this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Thomas, for your elaborate answer. But since you have mentioned that you have visited India as well as China early this year, I am tempted to ask you, how would you compare Indian and Chinese foundries with respect to Industry 4.0? I am tempted to ask this question before we move forward.
You ask me?
Yes. How would you compare India and China with respect to Industry 4.0?
I tell you, this is one of the most difficult questions you can put, because I have a lot of friends in China and a lot of friends in India.
So you make friends with the truth. You make friends with the truth and tell the truth.
I tell the truth. Yeah. As we know, our friends from China, they are very intelligent and are doing quite well. They copied a lot, and now they are able to do a lot on their own. And we have to realize this also, and no longer only copying.
Okay.
So what I saw is China is really on a high level. And in Europe, our thinking in Europe was always remain a step in front of the Chinese and nothing will happen. Now we have to be careful because sometimes my impression is sometimes we are overtaken. They are in front. Compared to India, the most Indian foundries I saw, this is more or less traditional. So I didn't see really high tech or development comparable to the European and the Chinese ones. But what I mentioned before is your chance is now to start really a new chapter.
Yeah.
And this was what I was extremely impressed by when I came back from Chennai. It was this paradigm shift.
Yeah. But
And
it
this
should
is
actually get implemented. That is the whole thing,
and
Mr.
this is
Thomas.
your chance now because
Yeah.
all of them, Europeans, Chinese, Indians, start on a level in this field of smart foundry.
Yeah.
They're starting on a comparable level because it's new for everyone. It's new for everyone, and those who want to make global business, when you are interested in global customers, it's a need. It's absolutely a need. No chance to escape, and whether we like it or not. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Thanks for your inputs, especially regarding China. So we also know where we stand with respect to European foundries and with respect to Chinese foundries. It's a very good global perspective that we are getting in this panel discussion. And with that, I would like to go to Mr. Arjunwadkar. Sir, we have seen the technical side. We have seen how the markets are getting compared, India and Chinese or European. I would like to draw your attention to one other factor, human factor, sir. Sir, in isolated or standalone foundries, it's not only the technical challenge; it's a human behavior challenge also. Because lot of people, lot of old people, lot of old employees, I would say, they are not really ready to bring the change. They are not. They feel that when machines will take over, then wow, we will be, will be thrown out of the company, or there will be no use of us human beings in the factory. So all that sort of thoughts come in their mind, and then they indirectly or directly resist this change. So what is your experience? You have been instrumental in implementing industry 4.0 in few foundries, and then you must have faced these challenges. So what is this challenge like, and how to overcome this challenge, sir? This
Oh,
is
well,
very important, sir. When isolated foundry they go to industry 4.0, this is the biggest challenge or biggest hurdle, I would say.
okay. Well, thanks. Well, thanks. Allow me to be here again. It's my pleasure, of course. Uh, First of all, I hear Mr. Thomas, Mr. Manish. Mr. Thomas is a globe trottler, so he knows almost every foundry across the globe, and he knows the culture. It's my pleasure to meet him and see him again. So, well, and Manish is also very young, dynamic. We know what has happened before he had joined the foundry, then before 2005. Rather, I can say I am associated with the industry from say 1975. So, taking at the perspective to your question, I can say that in the early days, when the computers themselves they got introduced to the society, not to industry but the society as a whole, to the offices, to the life insurance corporations, to the banks and all, there was a great degree of resistance. Even there were strikes that don't bring the computers to our factory. There were the strikes, but gradually people they understood that computers are for their benefit. They are go home early. Their totaling work is done in no time. You press the key and you got the total of the day's transactions. You can go home. You did not have to wait for late nights or burn the light for that. And people have realized that. So it's not made the life easy to them, but all this phenomenon has set a new culture in total. That culture says that you welcome the technology advances. And today you see, again, we look at this pandemic, the advantage, the blessing in the disguise, what I can say is that today, even a small child studying in the first standard and second standard, he is getting acquainted with this technology because of the online school. So that's the way. So the acceptance levels of the new technologies, new phenomena, it's very much there in the society, and the workers working in the foundry or the managers working in the foundry or in short the people working in the foundry is no exception to that. They belong to this society. They are aware of the advantage of it, and there are so many unpleasant jobs. There are so many things what they are really bothered to do. They don't want to do these repetitive jobs again and again and again every day and every hour. So they certainly look forward to get rid of it. And with this industry 4.0 revolution, they will get rid of this kind of repetitive things, but at the same time they will get the cream out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The real information what they need, that they will get on the table ready made, and then it will make their life easy and comfortable. That in my inaugural speech I had to I just briefed it, I touched it
Yes.
about
Yes.
that,
Yes.
that how the life will be comfortable and easy for the found engineers and the managers, and they look forward for that. Only the thing is that uh, you the right chord has to strike with the management. The water falls from top to bottom, so the culture flows from top to bottom. So the real change is not at the staff or the workers or the people working in the foundry, but the real challenge is to how the acceptance level will be there at the topmost management, at the apex management of any organization. If they accept, if they realize, because they look at the cost benefit always. I mean, that's the first thing. Any investor, if you the goal, the very popular book says that why I'm there for money. So all the apex managers, they look at the cost benefit, but ultimately, if they realize that there are tangible and intangible benefits of this thing, and gradually today at a first sight you may feel that okay, the cost is very high as compared to the returns what I'm going to get, but subsequently they gradually, if they make some deep study, if they visualize, if they have the good vision and the real perspective of the phenomenon, they will certainly act for that. And if that ice is broken, I'm sure the industry 4.0 culture will flow very smoothly, very comfortably to all sizes of it, right from medium size foundries. Because I don't say that small scale industry is the excess. Small scale industry, as I said in inaugural speech, step by step, wherever it is needed, whenever it is needed, they can opt for this kind of information technology techniques to make their life comfortable. But medium size and high level, high production outputs foundries, they should act as early as possible, as fast as possible. And
Yeah.
again, one more point. Okay, if can I get 2 minutes?
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
just share one
Please.
experience.
Yes.
The thing is that we have said that Mr. Thomas also said that is the customer pressure which will bring in. I have seen in other industries. I was a jury for some competition, and a very good foundries. I mean, good companies, not the foundries per se. A couple of foundries were also there, but the good companies were involved in that kind of competition of the excellence in the manufacturing operations. That's a cooperation. I was jury, and I learned so many things out of that in that competition. Though I was a jury, I came across a logistic example. There is a company which manufactures, the upholstery and the kind of things for the car, and this upholstery has to manage with the car color and all these things. So the digitization or the information technology has set up the programs like that. The moment the car comes out of a paint booth, the color of the car is automatically known to this company, and all the packing and parcel, right from door sides to panels to your upholstery, everything is drawn from the bins. All the set has been made, and believe me, in 40 minutes, those factories are away from each other. They are not in a one campus.
Mhm.
But our logistics is set with the help of digital technology, that all this set directly goes to the assembly line at the point where these things are to be fitted on the car. And that is happening in Chennai in India.
Ah.
So this is the advantage, and because you have the zero inventory cost,
Yeah.
not just but the fastest just-in-time inventory control is there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and of course the invoice is generally automatically your money is credited in the bank automatically. So you make all the transactions digitally. So
Yeah.
similarly, it's not far away that your customer will praise for you. This is a sub-assembly which is made of the castings, and I want it at 10:30 a.m. at this point.
Yeah.
And this is not a far-fetched idea. It will come down, and naturally, Foundry has to tune for that. If you start thinking, rather not thinking, but reacting it proactively, then I will be comfortable for that.
Yeah. Thanks for your input, sir. I was just when we started with the question of whether the employees have the resistance. So maybe that is more of a generation gap. Like senior employees may have some
So
reservation.
as I said, I answered it right at the beginning
Yeah, yeah,
that now the acceptance levels is very high.
very
So
high,
that
very high.
the employees will look forward to have this kind of
Absolutely,
technologies
absolutely.
because they realize that their life is more
Yep,
comfortable, and their
yep.
ultimate aim of producing good casting
Yes.
is achieved only with this kind of technology.
Yes, yes. Having said that, there is no practically no resistance or acceptance level is high. I would like to go to Mr. Patrikar. Mr. Manish, yeah, I would like to ask you, there is no at all, there is no resistance from the employees or from the staff. What other hurdles are you seeing? Is it how the small foundries are financially ready to do this? Do we need any change in government policy for that to facilitate this industry 4.0? I would, as Thomas says, revolution or a paradigm shift, as he says. What are the facilitators? Do we need some changes in the policy? Do we need some more liberal outlook from the financial institutions and banks? What do you need? Or some pressure from the customer? Ultimately, what do you need?
Actually, to answer your question precisely, both the panelists, Mr. Thomas and Mr. Sham, has partially already answered your questions. So two things are important: the OEM drive and the top management drive. This is the most important things which are important driver for driving this digitalization or Foundry 4.0 in
Okay.
the industry. So if you see the example, if you take earlier, the OEMs were asking and the foundries were producing castings on conventional lines. But nowadays, it is mandatory to have a high pressure molding lines.
Mhm.
This change has been brought by OEMs. And now, any management or any investor, when they are looking for investing in a foundry, the first thing came into mind is of making high pressure lines. So this change has been brought by OEM. Similar, as Sham sir already said in his,
Yes.
the top management is the main driver for implementing such policy decisions, whether it's the industry 4.0, digitization, or any new HR policies. So top management plays a very important role. If top management is allowing everything in line with the new policies of digitization, then there is no chance to escape from digitization. And as in our inauguration speech, everybody was saying, even Mr. Menon has also said, it's now or never. It is the high time we have to have this, or it will happen never. And Mr. Thomas has also said the same thing. It's the high time we have to do it, and there is no chance we can escape out of this Foundry 4.0. So
Sir, my
all
question,
environment,
I will
yes,
tell
sir.
you. Yeah, yeah. See, I agree with you that there is no escape. We have to, this is the only way forward now or never. All I agree. But
Yes,
having accepted all this, I also see that lot of foundries, most of the foundries have not done anything on Industry 4.0, are very
yes.
far behind in implementing Industry 4.0. Why it is so?
Uh,
If there is no problem, if there is enough pressure from the OEM, enough pressure from the top management, where is the problem? Why these are not getting implemented?
it's a mindset. as Sham sir already said, it's a mindset. Unless and until it is made mandatory by the OEM, so it is. I will say it's a link to the cost.
So there is no enough pressure from the customers.
Exactly, that's a pressure from the customer,
Ah.
and it has to work in a positive way.
So if
Suppose
there is anybody in the audience from auto industry, you should take a clue that we have to put more pressure on foundries.
yeah, it's a pressure on foundry, sir. It only
Chandekar,
works.
take me.
Yes, Mr. Arjunwadkar.
Uh, your question that why it is not happening.
Why it is not happening? Yes, my
Yeah, that is
precise question.
I understood that.
Hmm.
Uh, okay, it is the people are thinking in bits and pieces.
I understand Mr.
Overall,
Thomas also wants to say something,
yeah,
but I will
certainly.
come to Mr. Thomas after Mr. Arjunwadkar completes his.
Okay, it's my pleasure. Otherwise,
Yeah.
Mr. Thomas
No,
can
no, no.
share. No
Please,
issues.
please continue, Mr. Arjunwadkar.
Uh, the thing is that if you look at the foundry culture of the foundries, especially I'm talking about the MSCB foundries,
Hmm.
uh, this industry 4.0 requires some prerequisites. It has got some prerequisites. No, you just cannot do it. You open the curtain with and then there is a scenario of industry 4.0. It's not like that. You have to make a homework for that,
Hmm.
and you have to start inculcating that kind of culture in your organization. That culture speaks that first, the very first step what the MSME foundries can start, that collating of a data, collection of a data, may not be there real time, but what are the way they are gathering the data of your process parameters, that needs to be there, and they should make it that they should relate that data, gather data to the relevant batch of the production. They should not think arbitrary what they have produced and what was happening at the floor, because at so many occasions, even today, we see it is the so-called good foundries. We see that the melting data is kept at one side, the molding data is kept at other side, and when they have the rejection meetings, the data is never referred. So that's what I say. So you need to what to think of industry 4.0. You have to make them cultural revolution first, then you can join this revolution. So cultural revolution is that you bring in the discipline and the logic to your operations. What is the logic? The logical thing is that the baby step is that you collect all the process parameter data related to the relevant batch of production and start taking the decisions. So that way the message will spread across that okay, the data is important. And once the people on the shop floor they realize the data is important, then they will start gathering as accurate as possible. And then the second stage is they will go for the real time data. The moment you think of the real time data, you will think of the industry 4.0. It's again the integration of the technologies, as I said in morning, instrumentation to IT to process domain knowledge to automation to and you relate it, correlate it to your productions, then they will do. So first what we need to do is that, as Mr. Thomas has said or Manish has said, you need to have the cultural change. The revolution begins from the cultural change. So you need to have the cultural change in your shop floor. Then gradually you get tuned to that. Your acceptance levels for all these things that get enhanced, and you will think of 4.0, and then that will make the intensified efforts to implement and execute that. So the first stage is that this kind of conferences, I'm coming to that, these kind of conferences, what you organize, these kind of conferences should be there very frequently. Let all the industry captains they come together
Yeah,
and debate
yeah,
on this.
I agree.
Let the word get spread over,
Yes, yes.
and then only that is possible. The real revolution will come. As Mr. Thomas has given a very good, has coined a very good word. I can say. Then
What is that?
we can arrive and think of that.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, Mr. Thomas, you were saying
Yes,
something.
I totally agree. We are in a time of a turning point now. And this cultural change starts, I would say, not on the shop floor. It starts in our minds and in the minds of the CEOs. And they have to communicate it in the right way. They have to communicate it towards the workers, towards the staff, and also with the customers, and also with the financing banks and all the guys around. I was visiting in the Corona time. I was did only a few travels, and I was visiting a big German foundry, very traditional one, for more than 500 years tradition, experience, and fantastic. German foundry with a subsidiary also in India. And we were talking, and I was really surprised because the boss came, and around him, a lot of young people coming from consulting companies, coming from from other sciences, not from foundry engineering, from other sciences, and said, "Oh, what did you do?" And said, "Yes, I changed to quality management." And this means starting from zero, building up a new philosophy in this foundry. And I asked him, and what does it cost? Do you see any effects in it? He said, oh yes. Now we are able to talk with our customers on a same level, and we can develop new products together with the customer. And this is what really counts. We need new products. For instance, not only in automotive, also besides automotive, because we don't know what happens with automotive in the next 20 years. Maybe we get totally new mobility in our lives, and this is, and the boss of this foundry said, this is the main reason for me to hire people from other sciences with very good connections and the real mind for all these digitalization, smart factories. And this is because we need it. We have to talk with our customers, the same language. And this smart foundry, IoT 4.0, this will be a new global language. And as you mentioned, young people in the school, they doesn't learn anything else. Then they learn exactly this language. And now we have to take the decision when to start, or we can say we will wait and wait and wait. And this, I don't want to take this bad word, but this means disruption afterwards. So it's up to us to change our attitudes. And this is, I mentioned it before, whether we like it or not, we have to communicate it with all of the members, staff, banks, customers. And then if we are able to communicate in the right way, I'm sure we also can convince banks to give money for up-to-date foundries with new ideas for new products. And I'm happy, I know examples for this. And I know it works. And now we need more with the same thinking.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And as you rightly said, financial institutions and banks should also give money for this change and implementing Industry 4.0. I had asked this question to Mr. Manish, but somehow it escaped. I will come to Mr. Manish, but before that, since Mr. Thomas is there, I would like to ask him that in between the European economy was not that doing well overall. EU economy, it was done, it was down, and so our exports, Indian exports to Europe, were somewhat on a lower level. So do you think now European economy as a whole, not only foundry industry, European economy as a whole is now booming, or it is going up?
I think European economy will come in a stabilization. After COVID, we will have a stable situation, no doubt about. But what I see is in the last 10 months, there was a change in many people's thinking, because we learned after a very long period of really high life, and it was the best period we had in our mankind. And now we saw it's possible to live and it's possible to survive also with less parties and consumption and things like this. And this means we will, I think, I'm sure we will have a changed consumption behavior. And this affects all.
What will be that?
Yeah, this affects all industries, and this will affect a faster change, for instance, for mobility. We have the best example is we are sitting in our home offices. We have conferences like this. As the colleague said, I used to be a globetrotter, and for me it was I couldn't think about not to travel every month in a big travel, going all around the world.
Same here, same with me. I think all journalists have to travel. They
Yes,
cannot
and
sit at home and write.
now maybe you agree, and now we found out it's possible also without traveling. We have a lot of conferences and things like this, and now I'm talking with you in India, and it's not necessary to go by plane 8 hours. Now I'm sitting here, and afterwards it's a weekend and I go home. But
Yes,
this will not be the future. I hope we will meet again, and
yes,
because it's necessary. But
absolutely.
it's not necessary to meet maybe as often as before. And we are sitting in home offices, and we think about is it necessary to go every day to work, or every 5 days a
Yeah,
week
that's also a
to work?
question now.
Can we stay at home 2 days and go 3 days to work? This means mobility will change. Is it necessary to have a private car or not? All these things. And what I see, and this is in companies and associations and every partners we have, they are thinking about really realistic, and this means there will come changes. And to be prepared to this, we have to find the same levels with all industry producers and also consumers. And this means foundries have to think about their products. It's unfortunately it's not like the last 5,000 years,
Yeah,
because we have to think whether our products will really be needed or not. And so that means we have to really to find new attitudes, and we have to communicate it with all the participants of the industries. And this means, and we have industries, they are more ahead in this, better in 4.0, and we have to come to the same level.
yeah. Thanks, Mr. Thomas. So, as you say, the situation is still fluid.
Yes.
We don't know what direction it will go in the future. I'm not talking particularly about Foundry. I'm talking in general.
It's fluid, but we have to make the decisions on our own,
Yeah.
because we are decision makers, and we have when we wait until the industry or politics tell us, oh, we don't like private cars anymore, it's too late.
Yeah. So the thinking can change. I know, I understand. So I would go to Mr. Manish now. Mr. Manish, you haven't answered my two questions. One is, what do you need from financial institutions and what do we need from policymakers? I would like to ask the same question to Mr. Arjunwadkar after this. Specifically, what do you need? What the foundry industry needs from policymakers? Or
So
you say we don't need anything?
no, it's not like need anything from the industry or policy makers. From every perspective, when we are representing a Western region industry foundry organization, so we are always in talks with the banks and authorities and
Absolutely,
governments.
absolutely, I agree.
So when MSME schemes are there, which are actually subsidizing the cluster schemes. Like I will give you an example. There are some programs which are known as a digital quality cluster program. So what these programs mean, when the government bodies are financing those programs, when 2 or 3 of a foundry or more than 5-6 foundries come together, approaching the body and saying, suppose we are adopting the program of quality circle, digitization 4.0, or operational excellence, or some type of this cluster program. So these programs are being subsidized by the government bodies, like a 50% has to be paid by foundry industry, and 50% will be bear by the industrial body or the government body. So these programs are actually helping the foundry industry in Maharashtra and some other region to adopt the cultural changes which are happening for the Foundry 4.0, or it may be a Quality 4.0, or any digitization moves. So these things are always needed. So banks are also doing the same things, like some digitization. When you are trying to implement some tools, like in the insurance industry, you are actually adopting the GPS technology, they are giving you the incentive, because the incentive is given to know the driver pattern, the driving pattern from the driver, which will help insurance industry whether he is doing it right or wrong. So these type of changes are actually helping the industry and also the founder industry. So from banks, yes, the cluster from the government bodies, in IF, we are already having a policy advocacy committee, which is actually interacting with the central body, and these central bodies are actually helping us in a cluster way to subsidize the activities of the digitization and the industrialization. So am I answered your question, sir?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have answered my question. So I would like to further my question. Like, you want more and more foundry clusters, like Belgaum cluster, Coimbatore
Yes,
cluster, and
yes.
is there any plan by the government of India to develop new foundry clusters in other parts of the country?
It's like, it's not like developing a part. It
Hmm.
becomes a naturally a cluster. Suppose there are 5 to 6 cluster, well-established cluster in an India. For an example, Coimbatore is a cluster, Chennai is a cluster, Jalandhar, Ludhiana is the cluster. Then we have Gurgaon a cluster, Kolhapur is a cluster,
Yeah.
Rajkot is a cluster, Ahmedabad is a cluster. So these are naturally built cluster because of the OEMs are already present near to those clusters. So when I am talking about giving a subsidy to the cluster, it is not direct subsidy to the cluster. Foundry has to make their own association as a cluster.
Okay.
5, 6 foundries or more than 10 foundries has to come together and then approach a government or a bank institution to avail the subsidy. This is how the schemes works, not directly for the cluster.
Okay. 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 And last question to you, Mr. Manish, that
Yes, sir.
India is supposed to be the hub of auto components. That was the theory floated about 10-15 years back, and accordingly, auto components industry developed in the country, and even the foreign automakers which came in the country, they were asked to take procure most of their auto components from the domestic industry. So that is how the auto component industry, especially the casting industry, developed in this country for last 10,
Yes.
15 years. How do you see the future? Do you see the India is still the global leader, global hub of casting manufacturing? Do you see like that? Do you see a situation like that? And how is Industry 4.0 helping us to achieve this?
So two things are there.
Huh.
Since my earlier experience was with the company which was working worldwide,
Muss bloß aus dem Sichtfeld gehen.
in the Asia Pacific region. So I had to travel to Asia Pacific region for assessment of the in this analysis.
Gut.
So when I was actually attending one international conference a year back, so the feedback of the international speakers over there
Er
was,
hat mich bloß nicht eingeladen.
looking
Ich
for
musste
some,
mich
maybe
anmelden.
Mr. Thomas can verify it
Oh.
or validate it. So earlier, when big components like brake drums, hubs, and commodity components were actually manufactured and being procured from the Chinese companies or Asia to be specific, and those times the OEMs has also experimented some of the critical castings to be sourced from rest of India, Asian countries. I would not name the country specifically. So rest of India, they were procuring those critical components. But time to come, in a 5 to 10 years of the time, they found out, the OEM sourcing peoples have found out it is better to get the commodity castings like brake drum, flywheels, or non-critical components from the countries which are not in India, apart from India. But whenever there is a components like the cylinder block or braking component, these type of critical components are coming, which is actually a quality castings and a critical casting. India is one of the reliable partner where they can trust for the quality of the component, then supply and the commitment to fulfill. So this is their feedback internationally from the OEMs. So in line with those feedback, I'm still, I can validate this, that India is definitely going to be international casting hub for the manufacturing, because we are growing 10 to 15% every year, and the type of the industry and the investment and the technology we are bringing in, which we are adapting very fast compared to other countries, I am 101% confident and sure in a 5 years of time, definitely we are going to have this benchmark for the global casting manufacturing hub.
That's great news. That's great news, Mr. Patrikar. And I would like to go to Mr. Arjunwadkar. Mr. Arjunwadkar, now you are leading such a prestigious institution like NIFFT, National Institute of Foundry and Forge Technology. So, what do you think these institutes should do to promote Industry 4.0? What role do you see of these institutes in this journey of promoting Industry 4.0 in the industry?
Okay, that's fine. That's a very good question. I think we are, as I said at the beginning at the inaugural, that I said that at our institute we are making the transformation, right from name to the culture, to the curriculum, to the students' attitude, to the faculty's training. Everything we are changing now. That's a mission what we have taken. The moment I assumed around 5 6 months before I assumed the charge, we had very good meetings, and before that also I was a governing council member of the same institute, and we had experts committee, and the deliberation they started much earlier. It's not that over time I took the charge and I started making the changes, but the thought process was there. Even my predecessor, Mr. Ajay Chaudhary, he was also very much interested in making these changes, and so the homework or the groundwork has been done. So it was very comfortable for me to take some decisions on this. So before that, before I elaborate on this, I would like to congratulate Manish. This kind of young, dynamic, and positive leadership will look forward for the Indian foundries, and the thoughts and the vision what Manish has expressed. If I got say around 10 Manish in the Indian foundry industry, I'm sure we will succeed.
Great.
So
That's a great compliment
one
to
thing
the
I can
industry
say.
as well. Not only
Yeah.
to Mr. Manish,
Yeah,
but to the
because
industry as well.
I know Indians are capable of doing this. In my childhood, we used to import the wheat from USA,
Yeah.
and then the scientists worldwide they were predicting that in 80s, the India there will be man will be situation, there will be not the food. And look, we had a green revolution, and in 80s we started exporting the food grains.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the capacity and that's the capability and that's the intelligence and hard work of the Indians. So we can do it. Only the thing is that we have to take it to our heart. Yes, we are going to do it. And this attitude is very important.
Yeah.
If Manish in his tenure, I think he should spread this kind of attitude to wherever the platform he goes there. If that happens,
Definitely.
then that the task becomes more easy.
Sir, but I want to ask you more specific question. Like, do NIFT has some modules or some training programs on Industry 4.0? Are you going to develop some
Uh,
specific training programs for Industry 4.0 for the
In
industry?
fact, I can tell you in brief. First of all, as I said, that our mechanical engineering department doesn't say that only mechanical engineering. It says the advanced manufacturing and mechanical
Yes,
engineering.
yes, yes.
So that's the nomenclature. We are changing the total culture of the institution. Not only we, and then we had the experts meetings to decide and define the curriculum, what changes are to be needed. We want to make the students, they have the potential. The students in NIFT, they have got a very immense potential. They can catch up with this kind of subjects, and they will be industry ready in the scenario of 4.0. Because and even even for this, I can tell you one more thing. Not only I'm canvassing this, but we are sincerely interested in that. We are in dialogue with the Department of Electronics with Government of India, and very soon, it's very much at the preliminary stage. I cannot tell you more details of it, but very soon we are making the joint efforts to have a center or a center of excellence in NIFT itself, with the help of that ministry, to promote the Industry 4.0. And the students will get the benefits, faculties will get updated, and we can provide the consultancy to the industry on the same subject. And we can offer the services to the industry. That is what we are aiming at. We have already started the dialogue with the concerned ministries. Uh, and then this being a government project, there is no, I mean, budgets and all these things, they will follow. It will, there will not be any hurdles or the hassles. Principally, we are agreed on the terms. The formalities have to be done, and once they are done, and very soon maybe we will publish it in your Metalworld also. What is happening
Sir, I agree,
there.
but my humble submission is that the institutes, see, I have been associated with NIFT for a long time. You know that our
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
professors and all these
yeah.
connections were there, and I was aware of NIFT. But the my humble submission is that such institutes lack the connect with the industry. Not many industry and institute connect is not there. So we have to do something, something special, something more to develop that connect. Industry should need more and more of such institutes, and institutes should also get involved in the industrial operations in a bigger way. That's what I think.
Okay.
We have to we have to try in the future. What do you say
Okay.
about that?
Okay, sir. Okay, the very first step, what I can say, that okay, I'm a man from industry, and I'm
Yes.
I'm, I'm heading that, sir. So
So you have to
that's the
become
first
the
thing.
bridge, sir. You have to become the bridge.
The first thing, what is happened. But at the same time, keeping this lighter side aside, we are very serious about that.
Hmm.
We are in process of forming a industrial manufacturing forum. There will be industry participations. The captains of the industries were there in that forum, and this forum, the NIFT has taken the lead in formation of this forum. So the captains of the industry, they will be in touch with the NIFT. We will be interacting with the industry, and those people, they will be interacting with the industry. And then at the same time, there are the academia experts, not only from the NIFT, but from the IITs and ISCs. They're also there in the experts committee. Their inputs will also be considered. And in a way, what is the best for the industry? What, as we are discussing right from the morning, what is making inroads in the industry? Say like industry 4.0, new machines, new technologies, new systems, all these things, they are coming up there. Those will be discussed, deliberated, and the execution of this, what the academics has to give the inputs to implement those, and what practices has to be implemented, those all could be taken. And as we are saying, the apex of the industry will be there with us. So that way it will be easier to take it to the industry for us, because it will be validated and weighted by the apex of the industry, because the industry's captains, they will be there, because it will be, that will encompass the top bosses of the manufacturing industry. And we want to put the automation or the advanced manufacturing practices. That is what we are changing in the name itself, the National Institute of Advanced Manufacturing Technology. So
Correct.
advances in the manufacturing, those will be discussed, debated, and crystallized, and the solutions will be provided. And to provide the solutions, as Manish has said, something government is also facilitating. In the same way, government of India is also proactive in our efforts. Where also other ministries are also prepared to join hands with us, and the discussions are on. The dialogue is on a very positive frame, and I'm sure very soon we will come with the very positive news that we are commencing this kind of activities, and I'm sure we will approach you also to give this news to the Metal World
Of course,
and your Foundry Planet, because it's our pride to be there internationally present with the help of Mr. Thomas. I'll be there.
yeah, that's what I was saying. Yes, we
And,
have.
and one addition what I want to make is that Manish has said, you asked to Manish that what is the financial assistance the industry the need for industry 4.0. I said the very first thing what we have to remember is that all these efforts we are going to make the zero defect casting. The moment you reduce your 1%, 2%, 3% rejection, you are going to get flush with the money. Because though the foundry process per se, that is a profitable process, but we lose the money, we lose our profits, and we make the losses because of the rejections. So with all these technology inputs, not for the fancy 4.0 we want to incorporate, but we want to lead to the 4.0 defect. So so zero defect manufacturing, not 4.0,
Zero
zero
defect.
defect manufacturing, and
Yes.
that will help your cash flow substantially.
Yes.
So that will pay by itself. So that is
Yeah.
that is the point what I was interested in
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah, Mr. Thomas, with all this background, India, as Manish says India is on the way to become the global hub for the manufacturing of casting. So, how do you see the future relationship with the Europe about the from the Indian foundry perspective? Do you see more exports to Europe in coming days? And if you are seeing more business relations between Europe and India, how can agencies like you or me can become the bridges of this bilateral trade between India and Europe? How can you help and how can I help? How can we help?
Two answers to one question. In general, I see good chances for countries like India, highly developed in industry, to become stronger in the European market, because Europe as an industry producer will get less and less and less. So this is your chance, and with all these industry 4.0 harmonizations, it's getting easier for you. It's getting easier for everyone on the globe. But if you are really good, and we've talked about quality, and this is quite clear, India is recommended, so this is your chance. The other thing is this industry 4.0 has to be developed now. And also in Europe, we are not ready with this. We have to develop it. And in preparation to this conference, I was talking to Dr. Sandra Drexler. She was also in India. She's a member of the VDMA. This is a machinery
Yeah, I know.
association
Yeah.
in Germany, the biggest in the world, I think,
Yeah, yeah,
and also the European ones. And they set up OPC, Open Program Communication System, unified architecture for everyone. So also Indians can take part in this. And they set it up for the die casting industry. And it was stopped a little bit by COVID, but they are still working on it with really highly recommended companies and institutes and foundries. And this is for the die casting industry. And the next step would be to have it for the entire foundry industry. And this was really interesting what I saw. And if you are interested in this, I can give you more information about this. And I asked Sandra Drexler, is it possible for Indians to be part of it, or to develop together with them? Said it's no problem. It's open for everyone to get the best global level in this, because they are all um, working on this job. Though this is, if it is interesting for you, please give me a message, and I can give you detailed information for this. Until now, it's only for the die casting industry, but it should be also adapted for entire foundry industry.
that's great. That's great. And how can you and me can become the bridges of this bilateral trade?
This is
Platforms like Foundry Planet or Metal World should
this
become
is
the bridges of this bilateral trade.
this is what we are doing today is a part of this of this
Of
bridge.
course,
And
of course.
so it's really an honor for me to be a part, and it's good to communicate also with Indians again. And hopefully we can meet next year or the year
Yeah,
after.
definitely.
And so we have to build it up, and we have to communicate all
Absolutely.
these changes, because we were in a very nice situation the last 10 years before. Industry was running more or less. Everything was good. We had nice machinery developments, and we said consumption will increase everywhere. And we saw India and all the Asian countries and said, oh, they will buy cars and cars and cars. Car production was estimated on 120 millions in 2025. This won't happen. It's quite clear. So we have really to think about new opportunities, and this is our chance. And I'm sure it was necessary to have this challenge, and we can take the chance. And we are the bridge makers, Mr. Chandekar and Founder Planet. We have to be
messengers of change.
Yes, and we have to motivate all participants to be part of it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well said, Mr. Thomas. Well said. Thank you. I would go to Mr. Manish and Mr. Arjunwadkar for their last word on future-ready foundries. You know, how do you see the future-ready foundries? What is your advice to foundrymen? Starting with Mr. Manish.
Before I answer your question, I would like to share some inputs on the interactions going on like a bridge.
Yeah.
We wanted to. So it's not a question of doing anything or bridging. You are already become a bridge, like the Metalworlds or the Foundry Planets or the institutions, because the Foundry 4.0 is still not a prerogative of any person or any industry or any institute. It's a collective effort, has to be done by all of our institutions with of peoples like you, which are already bridging the gap of countries as well as the delegates, industrialists, and all. So by these collective efforts only we are able to go to this 4.0. So this is my based on your previous talks which are going on. So you are already a bridge.
Thanks.
Mr. Thomas, you are already a bridge which is already bridging the gaps of the communication. So coming to your question, what exactly we wanted to say for a future Foundry 4.0, it's not exactly what in the inauguration ceremony Mr. Menon would said, the dog and the the person's example, that we would like to see only two in the foundry. One would be a man who is feeding the dog, and the dog which exactly is looking to the man, she should not touch the machines. I would like to see more foundries, which are the smart foundries, running with the profitability, with the cleanest environment, like what we say in today's world. Why the newcomers, why the new people are not coming to the foundry? Because of the 3D, dark, dirty, and dangerous. So I wanted to see specifically Foundry 4.0 to remove these all 3Ds and have the new benchmarks which IT is doing, and people are coming to Foundry 4.0.
Thank you, Mr. Manish, and Mr. Arjunwadkar, please.
Oh well, I think Manish has spelled out his dream, and that is the dream of all of us.
Yeah.
So we are looking forward for that. Even I remember the chairman of Tata Motors, the telco in those days, the founder Mr. Murgaonkar. He has promised that when they commenced their foundry shop in Pune, way back in 76, 78, in that time, he said that I want to raise the roses inside of my foundry. So that's kind of clean environments he wants to keep in that. When the world was not aware of the environment, the World Meteorological Organization, they were still has to come up with these efforts, and but the world was not spread about the environments as it is today. At that time also he has got the vision. So we have got the visionary leaders, and I'm happy that the young generation like Manish is also telling themselves with this kind of thoughts. And we when we think of the future foundry, I would like to advise one thing, that foundry has to identify their niche in which they want to operate. Once they define themselves very clearly, all the things they fall in line. Once they
Yes.
define, they know what kind of mechanization they need. They know what kind of controls they need. They
Hmm.
know what kind of information they need to solve, and they know how to take up to the zero defect production. And once they are aware of it, they are very comfortable with that, and their life will be very easy. And that is the future. I mean, once the foundries they start defining, then that will be very uncomfortable. And only one thing what I would like to comment what Mr. Thomas has said, that about the organizational efforts to care for this thing. Very recently, just in last couple of days, I had a dialogue with GZI. That's a German organization working in the developing countries, and there we had a couple of meetings, and they said that for the skill development and at the ITI level, there is the industrial training institutional level, and at the foundry shop level, we are progressing with the dialogue to have the efforts for the skill enhancement there. And that's the program what we will like to share, do it across the country for all the foundry clusters and all what Manish has referred now. So that collaboration isn't happening, and very soon we will take it forward to actual happening, participate with that. And Industry 4.0, as I said, that this is a compulsion, and they have to be future ready for that, and and to make the life comfortable, to make the life easy for foundry engineer on the shop floor, they can opt for that, they can go for that. And basic disciplines, if they observe, they will be there. The future ready, if you want to become a future ready, you have to start observing some disciplines, and you start gathering the effects of it, you start gathering the results of it there to your benefit, and gradually you will go to the ultimate AI applications. That is the way what the future has to be there, that if they have to be future ready, they have to follow this roadmap. That is what I can comment.
Thank you, Mr. Arjunwadkar. I remember we had gone to visit Tata Sponge in Orissa long back. You were talking about the Tata culture. I'll just share my experience. And generally, the sponge and plants are very dirty plants,
Yeah.
very very dirty. I mean, सब जगह धूल होती है, and everywhere it is dust, and you cannot make out where is the plant. Like so much dust is there, not only in the plant but the whole surrounding of the plant. You know how cities like Raipur and in Chhattisgarh they look like. So when we went to the sponge, Tata Sponge, I thought that we are roaming in a garden. Such was a beautiful, planning. Such was a beautiful, I would say, shop floor management of the plant, and really Tata culture. That way, I hats off to that organization and that enterprise. Anyway, having said so, Mr. Thomas, any last word for this, or should we close down?
Yes, yes. Coming from a 5,000 years tradition and experience, I think foundry man worldwide should be self-confident enough to face this challenge of new technologies,
Yes.
and this means we should be really open for the new technology, new products, and this means we will develop our lives, our standards, and this means sustainability and environmental subjects and subjects of our lives. And Foundry is a basic element of this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we should be strong and self-confident enough.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. In fact, well said. That
Welcome.
reminds me of one very big saying that the history of human civilization is nothing but the history of metallurgical advancements. Metallurgical advancements have a lot of effect, a very major effect on the human civilizations, and I think India has got a very rich metallurgical heritage. One of the very old countries, old heritage to do copper castings, and lot of metallurgical miracles are there in the country, including the Delhi iron pillar and whatnot. I can share you many miracles on the metallurgical front, which are ancient and made by the at least 2-3 thousand years back. So having said this, it was a very absorbing session. I would personally like to thank Mr. Manish Patrikar. His dynamic leadership, as Mr. Arjunwadkar says, should lead
Thank
the
you.
industry in the future. Thank you, Mr. Manish. And thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Thomas, for being all the way with us from such a long distance. Of course, the distances don't matter now, but
Yeah.
at a very early hour of the day, you are there. At, it must be what 7:30 or 8:30 now in the Germany.
Now it's 8:30. Yes.
Now it
Yeah.
is 8:30, so you have been here since 7 o'clock with ice, with snow all around. So thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. I remember your contribution to our Foundry conference in Dubai also. You were there.
Yeah.
Yes, and we had good time in Dubai. So thank you very much for
Absolutely.
your continued support. I would again like to thank Mr. Arjun Wadkar for all his support to this event as NIFFT chairman, and also he shared his experience in this session, and his advice to the foundrymen will go a long way in developing Industry 4.0 modules in the industry, technologies and solutions. And with this, we come to the end of this very absorbing session. Thank you very much for participating. I thank all the delegates for participating in these very absorbing sessions, and I'm very sure that all of us have been, gaining something out of this session, out of this discussion, and the way ahead can be charted with the directions these experts have given us. So we come to the end of this session, and we will be back again at 2 o'clock with our business session one. Thank you.